Hola! Welcome to my channel. My name is Alejandra and I'm a Mexican knitting in Scotland. And today is episode number 4 of my knitting podcast. Hi! I hope you're doing well. If you're new here, welcome. This is a channel where I like to document my journey as a beginner knitter and find patterns that I find inspirational. And I also do regular podcast episodes when I talk about what I'm knitting and what inspires me. So if that's something that sounds interesting to you, I invite you to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss out on future videos. Today, I'm bringing to you just a regular podcast episode. I'm talking about my finished objects. I only have one, which is what I'm wearing. I will talk about my work in progress as 2 main projects and also new acquisitions. And also at the end, I'm gonna talk about a little moth incident that I had. So stay tuned if you wanna hear about that. So without further ado, let's get started. So starting with my finished objects, it is what I'm wearing today. It is the Tulipan Tee by LEKNIT or Lina Holm Sanso. And it is knitted in Sandnes Garn Line and the colorway Matcha. I really love this yarn. It has really beautiful drape and it knitted up very quickly because it's a worsted weight. So I really enjoy the knitting experience. So let's talk about the pattern construction first. This tee is a round yoke that you start by doing tubular cast on, which is the first time I did that. I followed a video by Andrea Maury. Yeah, Andrea Maury. I'm gonna link it below in the description because he was very useful. I found it very straightforward. So I followed that video tutorial for the cast on. So you start by casting on the neck and then you start shaping the back with short rows and they're knitted in pattern. So you do simultaneous German short rows at the same time that you're working a chart with the little lace motif. It was my first time doing German short rows and following a chart at the same time. In fact, it was my first time doing German short rows. So it was a little bit tricky to do it at the same time as I was following the chart. But I found the explanation in the pattern really well structured and I didn't have any issues. I think I had to unravel once because the little turn that you do, I counted as 2 stitches instead of 1. And I made a little mistake that I had to unravel and redo again. But besides that, I didn't have any issues. I continue knitting the chart. So after you do the German short rows, you start doing the round yoke, which has all the little lace motif that you work increases at the same time. So it grows as you're knitting the round yoke. And then at the end, it does have a little bit of raglan increases here for a better fit, which I think is really necessary because I don't really like when the round yokes kind of like you can't really stretch your arms because you feel like the fabric stretches. So I really think these raglan increases help improve the fit. And then you work the body and then the ribbing is a 1x1 ribbing. And you also finish with a tubular bind off, which is the first time I'm doing it as well because before I was only doing the Italian cast on without the setup rows. So this is the first time I worked the double knitting setup rows before the bind off. And I really enjoyed the result. I did that for the cuffs as well. One little thing that I would like to point out is I recently watched a podcast video by Kotovakika and Sari Nordland. They were talking together about summer knits. If you haven't watched it, I would recommend. It was really interesting. And Sari Nordland was mentioning that she doesn't like to use tubular bind off or tubular cast on finishes for her summer garments because she thinks the fabrics that are used in the summer, like linen or cotton, tend to flare and stretch out a lot with these type of finishes. So far, so good. I don't think anything is flaring out too much, but it's something that I'm gonna keep an eye on how the garment wears, and if it becomes flary or it starts becoming too stretchy, something to keep, something to keep in mind. Any other notes about the construction? I think the fit is really comfortable. I haven't been able to wear these at all because honestly here in Scotland, we haven't really had any warm days. Today is a little bit warm, but it's still like gray and really, really rainy. So even outside, I wouldn't be able to wear these without a jacket. But here inside, I'm perfectly comfortable wearing it. But I'm looking forward to the summer to actually get to wear these. And talking about the cost of the garment, I ended up using 6 skeins of the LEKNIT yarn. I originally bought 7, but I have here one full skein that I didn't even get to crack open. And I have this little left from the 6 skein. So I ended up using like 5.5. So I thought that was a pretty good result. I ended up needing the size medium, which is the 3rd size. I used 3mm needles for the ribbon finishes and 4mm for the body, which is the recommended needle size. I decided to use my wooden Knit Pro Symphony needles instead of my regular Chagoo set because I found the yarn very slippery and I really enjoy the experience. I only have like a couple of sizes on the Knit Pro wooden needles. So for the finishes, I still use my my Chagoo, but the Knit Pro, I had the full 4mm, so I decided to use that for the body, and I really enjoyed the experience. One thing though is that for the lace, it was a little bit trickier because the tip of those needles are quite blunt, and I'm used to my Chagoo, which are really good for lace, but I found that the yarn was slipping too much. So I really like the experience of using wooden needles with this type of slippery yarn. So if you struggle with gripping the summer fibers with your regular metal needles, I would recommend you try wooden because it does have a little bit of a better grip. The price per skein was, I got it for £5.15. So that was a total of 30 pounds, 0.9, and then 4.50 for the shipping. And the price of the pattern was $5.23. So that comes to a total of 39.82 pounds. And I'm gonna pop on the screen for other currencies. So I thought it was a pretty decent price for a summer garment. I know if you want to knit this in a cheaper yarn option, you can also use Drops Bale, which is a very similar yarn. In fact, it is the same yarn composition as thin linen. Sorry, as LEKNIT. This is not the thin option, it's just the worsted weight, which is 53% cotton, 33% viscose, and 14% linen. So this is the same composition as Drops Bale, as far as I'm aware, but it does come in a different color selection. And the reason I went with LEKNIT is because I really wanted to try this matcha color. I fell in love with this colorway, and I really want to try it in other bases because I really, really like it. But also Drops Bale just came out with new colors, and they do look very beautiful. In fact, one of you, if you're watching, I don't want to mention your name just in case you're not comfortable, but you showed me your beautiful tee by the same designer, but it was I can't remember if it was the Palma Tee or one of the other models, and Drops Bale in a gorgeous shade of like bright pink or like a fuchsia color. We call it Mexican pink. So it was a gorgeous, gorgeous color, and it really made me want to knit one of them. So I do think Drops Bale comes in beautiful colors. I just really, really wanted to try this linen. I think in the future I will use these, but given that Drops Bale is cheaper and is very similar to these, I will try to find a color that I like in Drops Bale. I do think this designer has similar tees that are really beautiful, and I would like to try some of the other patterns. The pattern was very clear to follow. This is the first time that I'm following a pattern by LEKNIT, and I had a very positive experience. It's really making me want to knit some of her sweaters, which have been on my list for a very long time. There's one specific one that is one of my dream knits, which is the terracotta sweater, which I'm gonna pop a picture there for you. It's like a color work, simple to color pattern. But the reason why it intimidates me is because I believe that you do have to work color work flat for a little bit. So something to think about, but it is on my list, and I'm hoping to knit that more towards the autumn or the winter. So I do really recommend this pattern, and if you're a beginner, if you like this pattern, I do think that it's very straightforward to follow. You do have to keep in mind that you're gonna have to do German short rows and follow a chart at the same time. But if you do it slowly and you pay attention to the pattern, I do think it's really possible. So don't make that stop you from knitting this beautiful tee. So that's it for my finished objects. So my first work in progress I did talk about in my previous podcast, which is my birthday cast on. It is the Winnie Sweater by Lily Kate France, and this is another one of my dream knits. This was my birthday cast on back at the end of April, and the only reason why I don't have more progress is because I encountered a really big issue. So by the way, I am recording a vlog to document the whole process of this sweater, and I will talk about in a lot of more detail in that video. Just a very quick summary of the issues I've encountered is that it has this beautiful lace pattern that goes all the way to the side of the body, but I made a mistake. In the pattern, you have two lines that you have to follow. One has a little lace detail, and the other line is to knit. So you're meant to alternate between the lace and the knit row. And what happened is I didn't see the second part that said to knit the following row. And what I did was I did lace in all the rows. So that caused a lot of bunching up of the fabric. That was causing a lot of bunching up of the fabric. And I was like, is this gonna block out? I was a little bit delusional thinking that was gonna block out because I didn't realize the mistake until I started knitting the sleeves. So I finished the body and didn't realize of the mistake. So after that, I was very proud because I started knitting the sleeve, which is a lot of shaping and short rows in the shoulder cap. And it was looking so pretty here that I was really, really proud. And I thought it was looking great, but I was still worried about the sides of the body not looking that great and the fabric bunching up. And one of my main concerns, it wasn't only the fabric bunching up, but it was because the lace was in every single row, the yarn overs were really thin. It was just one strand of the yarn. So I thought it was creating a very breakage prone section here in the body. And I was starting to get really concerned about how wearable or how easy it will rip with wear. And until I came to the sleeves and I realized the mistake, and I was like, I really have to go back and unravel. So I put it in the corner of shame for a couple of weeks because I was having a little bit of stressful time with other things in my life, and I didn't have time to focus and really put my mind into troubleshooting mode or like fixing the issue. And in fact, at the beginning, when I realized that mistake, I remember it was like 11 at night or something, and I was like about to go to bed, and I realized the mistake, and I almost went and unraveled it immediately just so I could go to sleep. But I was like, no. I'm a little bit worked out at the moment. thinking about the mistake. So I'm gonna put it away for a couple of weeks and think about how I can fix that. And then once I have a more clear head, I'm gonna go back to it. And I'm glad I did that, because instead of unraveling the whole thing, I decided to ladder down the rows that were creating this lace pattern. So I laddered down all the way. I'm gonna pop a picture there so you can see how scary it looked. And this is the first time I'm doing this technique to ladder down and fix the mistake. To be honest, it's not the easiest to do in lace pattern. To be honest, if it was in stockinette, it would have been so much easier. With a crochet hook, fixing that, it wouldn't have been a big issue. But because this was lace, I was really scared to fix it. But I took this as a learning opportunity. So I unraveled the whole thing. And instead of using a crochet hook, I just put, these are 5 stitches that are part of the lace pattern. So I put the 5 stitches on the needle and I started working my way all the way through every single row. And I do think it turned out okay. I can see, because I was working from this side to this side, that the yarn overs towards the end are a lot looser than the first yarn over. So everything is kind of shifted towards one side. If it's not clear to see, I'll pop a picture. But I think it is definitely much better than what it was before. And I do think the structure that it has now is worth the fix that I had to do. So now I'm continuing with the sleeve, and this that was done in every single row, it does look much neater than the fix I had to do. But I hope I'm not being delusional again, but I do hope that with blocking, it kind of evens out. There's no more bunching, so that gives me hope. There's no more bunching up of the fabric. And yeah, I'm really excited to finish these. I haven't done any of the lace finishes on the neck or the hem because I'm playing a little bit of yarn chicken with this dye lot. So I have this Cardiff Cashmere in the colorway 564, and single dye lot, I only have nine balls, but I do have 3 or 4 balls in a different dye lot. That doesn't look too different, but because I don't want the difference to be so evident, I'm gonna just continue using this dye lot for the sleeves, and then if I have yarn left of the same dye lot, then I will continue with the lace. But if not, then I'm gonna use the other dye lot that I have, so it's not too noticeable, hopefully. I still have 3 balls, but I'm about to run out of these and the sleeve. So I don't know if it will be enough. I think I just really have to wait and finish the sleeves until I can decide if I have enough or not. So yeah, stay tuned for the vlog coming up to hear more details about this sweater if you're interested. And next, I have probably the project that I'm the most excited about at the moment, which is, it's gone viral and a lot of people have been needing this, but I don't really care. I feel like it's even an exciting thing to be part of a community that is all excited about the same pattern. So I am participating in that. And it is the Marielle Blouse by Marielle's Verden. And I chose this gorgeous, gorgeous color that I'm so in love with, which is Knitting for Olive in the shade Watermelon. It is this beautiful shade of, it is described as a corally red. So yeah, I think it's like a pinkish red or a corally red. But watermelon is truly the shade to describe it. It's gorgeous. I'm using the merino held together with the soft silk mohair. And I'm finding this pattern so addictive. It is truly so potato chippy. You just want to get to the next diamond and the next motif, and you just want to see it grow. So I am really, really enjoying the whole process. This is a lace little motif alternating the diamonds with these vertical lines, which is very much in trend with the pointelle. I do have a video about pointelle patterns. If you haven't checked it out, you can go ahead. And it was the whole inspiration behind that video, and I've been obsessed with pointelle, and I'm glad I got to cast on this project and start working on it because it has been my obsession. I'm really, really proud of the collar as well. It's a folded collar. And one thing I really like about this pattern, and it's something that I wanted to try, is it has these alternating rounds that are not quite double knitting because it is skipping one of the stitches. So you knit one, you skip one, but then in the next round you do the same rather than doing the purl to complete the double knitted. So I think, I'm not sure what's it called, so if you know, let me know in the comments, but it's like almost double knitting or half double knitting. Is that the way it's called? I'm not really sure, but you can let me know in the comments. But it does create this rich that I don't know if you'll be able to appreciate on camera, but that makes the fold look very neat and intentional. And I really like the effect that it produces. And also, I've been working on my ribbing because if you've seen any of my previous videos, pretty much in every single one, I comment on how I'm really bad at ribbing, and I've been working on improving my ribbing technique. So I tried a new thing in this collar, which is wrapping the yarn around my hand to make the stitches, to adjust the tension of my stitches. And I think it helped. I also went down a needle size. I think the pattern suggests 3.5 millimeters, so I went down to 3.25. And I think maybe I could have even gone to 3 millimeters because the rest of the body is worked on 4 millimeters. So maybe going down like a full, I don't know, a full size. Is that a full size? Like a full millimeter would have been a good idea. I don't know. I can experiment that in the next projects. But I saw the technique of wrapping your yarn around your hand to manage the tension by Lily Kate France in one of her Instagram videos. I haven't tried that for the rest of the body because I didn't want my tension to change. But in my future projects, I am gonna try wrapping the yarn around to see if my stitches improve. I do think I have somewhat of a loose tension, so perhaps wrapping the yarn will help me manage the tension. I don't know, it's something that I'm gonna have to experiment. But I'm really, really proud on how this collar turned out. And I'm really excited to have this as a finished object. I cast it on the size 3, which is the first size that has bigger, like an increase, a whole increase in the repetition of the motif for the sleeves. And I am worried about that because I have heard a lot of comments about the size of the sleeve being too wide. And I can see right now that the armhole is quite large and there's no decreases. So I am slightly concerned about that. I am not sure if casting on less stitches, like casting on the same amount of stitches for the smaller size, is gonna create too much bunching up of the fabric around the armhole. I'm gonna have to try and experiment with that. I think I've saw other content creators talking about that are needing the same size. Instead of doing following the pattern for the sleeves, I think they did one less motif for the armhole depth, which is probably what I should have done, but I was a little bit too scared of doing too many modifications because I'm still a beginner and I'm still not sure how to work out all the modifications. So I'm gonna have to experiment with this armhole for picking up the stitches and see. Maybe I also saw another person doing decreases. So instead of following the pattern for one of the repetitions. I think they left that in plain stockinette, and they started doing the decreases on the repetition that was just like below the armhole. So that's another option I could do decreases. I don't know. I'm gonna have to play around and I'll let you know what I decide to do. So yeah, I'm really excited about these. I don't think it will be too warm for the Scottish summer. If anything, I think this is gonna be harder to wear in the summer here. We do get warm days more towards July, but they're really occasionally here and there, and then you get again rain. And for me as a Mexican, it's not really that hot. I can still wear sweaters in the summer. And I think I'll be able to wear these and even in the autumn and the spring next year. So I'm really excited to have these in my wardrobe. And I've been enjoying every single process, every single thing with these. Another new thing that I tried on with this pattern is the cast on stitches for the armhole and also to join the front pieces. Instead of using the regular backwards loop for casting on new stitches, I use, and it was recommended by the pattern, I use the knit stitch cast on method, which was new to me. And oh my gosh, what a game changer. I'm gonna be using that in all the future patterns that mention backwards loop, because I hate the backwards loop cast on. I think it creates like huge gaps and I really don't enjoy knitting the round after that, and I don't think it looks very neat for picking up stitches, and I'm really not a fan. But I was really happy and pleasantly surprised with this cast on method, so I'm gonna be using that in the future. I didn't mention the construction, but this is a European drop shoulder construction that you do with a trapezoid. Like you start knitting the back panel with increases for the trapezoid, and then you put the stitches on hold for the back, you pick up for the shoulders for the two front panels, and then you do the extra cast on stitches to join the front two panels. And then eventually you join the front and back panels also with extra stitches, and then continue, which is a very similar construction as the previous sweaters I've done. In fact, I am getting to the point where I don't want to cast on any more drop shoulder constructions, because I do want to experiment with different ones. So yeah, I really want to experiment with other constructions. In fact, I'm in the lookout for a pattern that uses compound raglan construction. I do have one in my list. I think it's the Tulipan Tee by LEKNIT France, but I'm on the lookout for a sweater. I don't know, maybe I can buy that and make it a sweater, because I really don't have a lot of use for tees here in Scotland. Perhaps I'm gonna cast on one more tee this summer, but I think for now I'm gonna do most of my efforts focus on knitting sweaters, which is what I get to use the most here in the weather that we get in Scotland. But yeah, maybe I can knit that Tulipan Tee and make it a sweater. I don't know, I'm gonna think about it. But if you have any other suggestions of compound raglan construction and of sweaters that use that construction, please let me know in the comments, because I want to try that out. I know some people are not huge fans of raglans on them, but I do think that for my body it does work quite well. I think I have like kind of a rounded shoulder. I have like a slope here between my neck and my shoulder, and sometimes I find that the drop shoulder just emphasizes that roundness, and it's not really the effect that I'm going for. So I want to try a raglan. I do have like a commercial garment that is a raglan, and I use it a lot, and I think it suits me. So I want to try knit my own and see how it fits. So yeah, that is the other whip that I have. I did make a little bit of progress on the scarf that I worked on that I mentioned last podcast, but I didn't make that much progress, and to be honest, I haven't touched it in a few weeks, so that's why I'm not including it in this video. But hopefully next video, if I have more significant progress, then I can show it, or maybe I will be able to finish it by then. So that's it for my works in progress. So now moving on into acquisitions. I don't have that many acquisitions. One of them since the last podcast is a yarn I got for my Marielle Blouse, which is the Knitting for Olive watermelon for both the mohair and the merino. So as part of that order, I also wanted to try the cotton merino. So I ordered some skeins in the shade bottle green. So I do have a couple of patterns in mind for these to do a tee, but I don't know if I'm mentally ready for a fingering weight garment. I think it would look beautiful, don't get me wrong. I think lighter garments look so polished and so beautiful, and I think they're gonna be super wearable, but it's just, I'm still in that stage of the beginning that I like that instant gratification of seeing the progress of my garment. And I don't know if I'm mentally ready for a fingering weight, which I know is gonna take a lot longer. So I'm gonna see if I can encourage myself to knit a fingering weight pattern, but otherwise I also have some cotton and a sport weight and my stash, so that's perhaps something I can use to cast on another tee. So yeah, still thinking about it, but I wanted to try these. So I bought enough yarn for a tee, so I will let you know what I decide to do. One of the patterns I have in the lookout for these, I also mentioned it during my pointelle roundup, is tee by Tori Yu, and it is a Cosmopolitan tee. She also has a shawl and the same kind of lace motif or pointelle motif, but I really like the tee. It has I think it was a simultaneous setting sleeve construction, and that I thought it was super interesting. So that is one on the top of my list. So that is one maybe, but also want to do the terrace tee. And there's one more by the Knit Pearl Girl that she just released. I can't remember the name, so I'm gonna pop it up on the screen, that I can't get out of my mind. So, and because I do have that cotton in sport weight, and I believe that tee is sport weight, so I don't know, there are strong contenders, but I haven't decided. So let me know in the comments if you are planning to knit any summer garments this year. I am planning to do another pattern roundup, but I can't decide if I should do one for tees, which I do have a lot of tees in my Ravelry list that I could do. So it's gonna be either summer tees or also free scarf patterns that I found and I have in my Ravelry list. One of them is the one I've been working on. So I don't know. Let me know in the comments if you're interested in any of those two videos, or in which one would you like me to do first, so that I can have an idea of which one to record. To be honest, they both really excite me. Even though I said I don't have a lot of use for summer tees, maybe if I can at least talk about it, then I can get it out of my system if I don't have time or energy to knit one of those beautiful summer garments. So I believe that's it for acquisitions. As I said, I really don't have that much, thankfully, because before that I've been buying a lot of yarn, so I should be more careful with what I buy. So I did wanted to talk briefly about the moth incident that I had. And it was the same day that I discovered I made the mistake in my Winnie sweater. So I really was not having the best knitting day. I was so devastated, but I'm glad I was able to troubleshoot everything, and I'm happy now. So if you've never had any moth problems, you're lucky. I remember I saw many videos of people mentioning about moths and how they were storing their yarn in plastic bags. And when I saw that, I was like, oh, but I don't really want to have my yarn in plastic bags. It really doesn't look that nice. And I want the yarn to be able to breathe and not be constricted in fabric. But oh gosh, little did I know that I would regret those words. So it was one of those days, and I was just like in the room where I have all my yarn. And I have a basket sitting on top of like one of those IKEA block furnitures. And it's like a nice weaved basket where I have yarn that I haven't even used, to be honest. This is yarn I bought. It was 100% wool that I bought from the Wool and the Gang. I think it's called Lil Sexy Yarn or Lil Sexy Wool. I don't know. I'm going to pop it on the screen. It was quite chunky, and I bought it to try to learn to knit a couple of years ago. Before I got into knitting, I was still crocheting at the time, but I wanted to get into knitting. And I didn't enjoy the experience of knitting with chunky yarn, so I gave up very quickly. And I only started knitting more recently, but I haven't touched that yarn in a long time, which is the reason probably why the moths found it so convenient to go there. But I saw a little moth outside the basket, and I was like, oh no, what a disaster. But I was like, no, maybe it's just outside. So I was still hopeful that it was just, I caught it in time, that it didn't do any damage. But then I panicked. So I emptied the basket and I started going skein by skein. I started going skein by skein, inspecting to see if there was any damage. And unfortunately, I did find a couple of skeins that were damaged. They had quite a lot of breakage. I'm gonna pop on the screen a couple of pictures that I took. And I was so scared of the rest of my stash getting infested. So this was just in the basket. It wasn't that only had that yarn. So it was that and another wool. It was like a Peruvian wool that I had there from Hobbycraft. So I'm gonna pop both pictures on the screen of the damage. From what I could tell, it was only that basket, hopefully. So what I did is I went on the internet to look how to deal with these situations. I have heard other content creators talking about freezing or baking your yarn to kill any possible larva or any possible eggs that, not larva, I guess it's not called larva, but any possible eggs that could be in the yarn. So I just did a search on the internet, and I saw that you can freeze your yarn for 48 hours or 72, can't remember, and then you take it out for 24 hours to see if any eggs hatch, and then put it back in the freezer. So that's exactly what I did. I put everything in Ziploc bags, and I did the freeze, thaw, freeze process. Right now it's still on the freeze, on the last freeze process. So that's what I did. And then I went on, and for the rest of my stash, I put everything in Ziploc bags. I didn't want to take a chance. I was really, really terrified. And now I have learned my lesson, and I'm going to put everything in bags from now on. It's just, I only have this basket for the whips I have of, or things that I'm constantly working on and that are moving. But anything that is in storage, from now on, I'm gonna keep in plastic bags or plastic containers. I'm really not willing to take a risk. And yeah, I have definitely learned my lesson the hard way. So if you're watching these and you think, oh, moths are not a concern that I have, well, take these as your hint to worry about moths. They can really do damage to the fabric, and think about how to prevent that so that you don't end up in my situation. So that's all I have to share with you today. So thank you so much for watching. And if you're interested in hearing more about my Winnie sweater or the pattern roundups that I have planned for future videos, please subscribe to my channel so you don't miss out. And until next time,